Hey beautiful souls, it's your girl Jarius the Aquarius, and I want to talk about how I freed my bloodline from false solar god, from the false solar god St.Germaine specifically, and how you can do this too. So if you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to be doing a free transmission where we can clear from the false solar and false lunar gods that our families may have been perpetuating in, and something that is still affecting us today, right? So let's get into this. So healing my family line from the St.Germaine false solar god and breaking the St.Germaine curse on my line. So what if one of the most popular ascended masters isn't who we think he is? What if he's part of a false solar program that our ancestors got entangled in? Did you know our ancestors sometimes got caught up in false spiritual currents, and that we can actually free our family line from these distortions? So let me share my own story. So, the ancestral discovery. So about 2 years ago, I got Ancestry.com, and I found out that my 16th great-grandfather, Thomas Bacon, B-A-C-O-N, I don't know if it was pronounced Beacon or Bacon, but he was born in Ipswich, England. I hope I'm saying that right, in 1550. And this was right in the middle of a huge spiritual turning point on Earth, right? And Ipswich was a hub of trade and ideas, and the Bacon families there weren't just farmers. Some were, some weren't. Some were tied into the cultural and religious currents of the time. So my specific ancestor, which I'm going to leave a slide of him, he was a clergy, part of the royal court. So that tells me that he was dealing with religious matters. So he was tied into this, okay? So what struck me is that this was exactly the period when the secret orders like the Rosicrucians, I'm going to butcher that word each time, and honestly, I don't give a fuck, okay, were rising, and when Europe was being flooded with new philosophies around alchemy and hijacks were coming in, right? So learning about Count St.Germaine, so I watched this video about 3 years ago about Count St.Germaine. I don't know if you guys have heard about him, but you guys should definitely watch the video because it's very interesting, especially if you believe in past lives and reincarnations and things like that. But they literally call him the Count St.Germaine, okay? And I had noticed that one of his incarnations was in England around the same time my ancestors were, and his name was Francis Bacon. So I was like, okay, so let me do my research, and that he incarnated in England as Francis Bacon, and a different family line, I believe, but around the same area and time as my family was also there. So families like mine, so you don't have to have the last name Bacon or anything like that, but let's say your family was in England around that time, and let's say they worked for spiritual, or they were part of the clergy working for the royal family. Maybe they studied religion, law, things like that. They could have definitely been probably tied into this. So families like mine were living right in the middle of the energetic clash between true spiritual wisdom and distorted teachings. So this is, I think, around the time when the King James Version Bible came out, okay? And then we get the whole, you need to be subservient to your husband. You know what I'm saying? This is where we get the great divide, where they're pushing, like the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is better than the feminine because Eve ate that apple. Oh, God forbid, the feminine deserves to be looked upon and demonized, right? No, just note the sarcasm, okay, there. So the false overlay. So you've probably heard of the so-called Ascended Master Saint-Germain in the Violet Flame, but what I've come to realize is that this figure is not of true light. He represents a false solar overlay, and he is one of the Anu Elohim. So he fell from the blue flame. So at one point he was of the Krystic light, but he fell, okay? And he's a mix of Anunnaki and the blue flame, right? And is a false solar god, okay? So historical tie. So the Bacon family, including my Thomas, and then later Francis Bacon, St.Germaine, lived in England during the exact same window where the Rosicrucianism, so Rosicrucian, whatever, Freemasonry, these secret brotherhoods really started to come online to hold this sacred knowledge, right? To withhold this sacred knowledge from the collective, the mass, right? And alchemical orders were seeding. Saint-Germaine, the ascended master figure later promoted in New Age teachings, is tied to those very same currents. He's presented as a mysterious immortal alchemist tied to the Crucifixions and the secret European brotherhoods. Allegedly, right? So your family line was present in the same energetic arenas. For me, my family line was present in the same energetic arena where this false overlay was being seeded. So my ancestors were around the time when this stuff was going on. Like, same place, same grid, ley lines, whatever, right? The distortion. So the real alchemy of this time was working with elements, transformation, and divine fire codes. But this was hijacked by the Anu Elohim false solar orders. So St.Germaine, right? St.Germaine, as he's marketed in New Age teaching, is a front for that hijack. The violet flame narrative is an inverted form of true flame serpent codes, to say the least. Families like the Backens, whether public philosophers like Francis Bacon or St.Germaine, or quieter lineages like my Thomas, got wrapped into this current either knowingly or just by living in its influence. Even talking about him gives me headaches. St.Germaine, literally. And I understand why. Because my ancestors were alive in that exact timeline when this distortion was being seeded. Okay? The ancestral entanglement. So my Backen ancestors were in they were in the energetic field of those false teachings. Especially Thomas. He was working in the clergy. You know what I'm saying? So he was probably sitting there getting told what to write and what to put out. You know what I'm saying? So even if they weren't directly involved, you know, some of your ancestors may have not been, the influence left an imprint on my maternal bloodline, though. And I see this through generations and through generations where the women in my line have felt suppressed. They have felt like they needed to serve their man, that they need to put themselves on the back burner, right? To either be of service in some way, like being nurses or taking care of kids, getting pregnant young. You know what I'm saying? That instantly causes a fracture within your inner child and your inner feminine and inner masculine, how you look at the masculine then. So then, yeah. The violet flame is about getting you back to 0 point. And is moving forward. So, and now, generations later, I have witnessed many family members still associated with these secret societies and false solar teachings. Allegedly, just in case any of my family members find this video, because it is what it is. I'm going to talk. I'm going to speak it. I reject those distortions, though, because part of my soul mission is to clear them and to speak about it. So the lesson in teaching, this is why I share this, is many of us carry ancestral lines that brushed up against false solar and lunar gods or hijacked spiritual systems. And it's not about fear or shame. It's just about awareness and true alchemy and clearing these. And if you stay to the end of the video, we will do a free transmission. Only Krystic energies are welcome here. Only love enters here. Now that we've set our space and we've declared our intention, for myself and my lineage, I now release all false contracts, agreements, and overlays with any and all false solar, lunar gods, false masters, and siphon systems. I reclaim only what is true and aligned with source. I cut all false ties now. I restore my family line to its original divine blueprint, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and it is done. If this message resonates, don't forget to give this a like, subscribe, or share. Omni-love. Absolute healing. Until the next transmission.